Present.
Commissioner Wygand? Commissioner Kaler?
Okay, we got a couple missing, but we do have a quorum, so we'll still be able to conduct business. We will start with our Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the invocation by Reverend Charlie Adams. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Eternal Lord, ruler of all, graciously regard those who have been set in positions of authority among us, that, guided by your Spirit, they may be high in purpose, wise in counsel, firm in good resolution, and unwavering in duty, that under them we may be governed quietly and peaceably through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Charlie. All right, we will start. Look at the consent agenda. We have the minutes from the April 2nd study session, April 4th regular meeting, and the April 9th study session. Do we have a motion for the approval of the agenda?
So moved.
It's moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Good. I'm glad we're here. All right, we have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Vote. I think we guess everybody voted yes. We're good there. Go on to next item for public comments. Anybody signed up?
No one's registered.
Nothing here. Okay, we'll skip that part. Go on to number 9. At this time, I'd like to give the commissioners a chance to declare any conflict or communication they've had that might influence their ability to consider today's issues impartially. Everybody good there? We'll go on to item number 10.
Presentation of mini MPA graduate certificate to Betty Simpson.
And come forward. I guess this is Morgan?
Yes.
Welcome, Morgan.
Thank you so much for having me today. My name is Morgan. I am with the Wichita State University, and I want to thank you all and your staff for supporting staff professional development. The Mini MPA Professional Development Program has been in place for over 17 years with over 490 graduates. These sessions are taught by academic faculty from the Hugo Walsh School and local practitioners. These attendees were dedicated to attending 16 sessions, 8 in the fall and 8 in the spring, and that started at 8 a.m. on Friday mornings, so it's very dedicated. The topics covered each week ranged from human resources, finance, strategic planning, and community engagement. If you look at the alumni of the Mini MPA, you will see fire chiefs, undersheriffs, finance officers, and many other local government and community leaders. It's really great to look at what they've accomplished since their time in the Mini MPA, and we look forward to seeing what Betty will accomplish. This year's class had 31 participants with backgrounds that ranged from fire, IT, marketing, undersheriffs, and finance. The breadth of knowledge this group possessed was one of the main reasons the Mini MPA is so successful. They are able to network and gain these extra skills and count on these colleagues to work through professional challenges. This year, we had Harvey and Sedgwick County represented, along with the cities of Ottawa, McPherson, Bel Air, Derby, Mays, and Wichita. Additionally, we had several nonprofits and staff from Wichita State University. Again, we appreciate your support of the program and staff development. And in addition, there's also the option of taking the class for graduate school credit, which is something that Betty chose to do. So that's extra work on top of her 16 sessions. So she has worked very hard, and on behalf of the Hugo Walsh School of Public Affairs, I would like to congratulate Betty and present her with this Mini MPA.
Great. Betty, you want to say a few words? Help yourself. That's great.
Thank you. I do appreciate the support of staff and of the commission in allowing me to further my education and to bring back opportunities for us to make changes for the better of our community and of the city. Thank you.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Betty. Congratulations. That's great. And Morgan, don't go away. I guess we got something else here for you, huh? Wonderful.
Presentation of Certified Municipal Clerk Certificate from International Institute of Municipal Clerks to Amy Finch.
So Additionally, at the Wichita State University, I also am the education director for the City Clerk and Municipal Finance Officers Association. And so it's my honor today to present Amy with the Certified Municipal Clerk designation from the International Institute of Municipal Clerks. To earn this designation, Amy attended extensive education with Wichita State and the CCMFOA. This is a 4-year intensive program with 120 contact hours. These contact hours were focused on 3 separate categories: public administration, social interpersonal issues, and electives. We cover sessions on finance, law, leadership, ethics, human resources, decision-making, and management. Amy has worked hard to complete these requirements, and we are so proud of the work that she does here. So on behalf of the City Clerk and Municipal Finance Officers Association and the International Institute, I would like to present Amy with her designation.
That's great. Amy?
Thank you, Morgan, for coming up from Wichita to present our certificates today. And thank you to our city manager and my director, Scott Bird, for supporting and encouraging continued education. Thank you.
Good. Congratulations. Well, we think it's wonderful. We just don't stop learning when we get our jobs, and I do appreciate the city staff and Richard and for encouraging you all to continue your education. So congratulations, and we thank you, Morgan, for being here to present this, and congratulations to your basketball team, maybe next year, but anyway, it was close. But thanks for being here, everybody. That's great. We'll move on to item number 12.
A proclamation recognizing Water Week.
Water Week is celebrated April 15th through 21st. This proclamation recognizes the technological advances by water and wastewater professionals. Dave Beeler, Assistant Utilities Director, and other Utilities Department staff will accept the proclamation, and Commissioner Wygan will read that for us.
Whereas, before the implementation of reliable drinking water and wastewater treatment, thousands of people in the United States died of waterborne diseases like cholera, dysentery, typhoid, polio, and hepatitis each year. And whereas technological advances by water and wastewater professionals have improved the treatment of both drinking water and wastewater in the United States and the world, and whereas access to clean drinking water is crucial to the health and safety of our citizens, and whereas treatment of our wastewater each day plays a critical role in keeping our environment clean and preserved for future generations, and whereas stormwater management is vital to the protection of our environment and the health of our watershed, and whereas each citizen of our city is called upon to help protect our source waters from pollution, to practice water conservation, and to get involved in local water issues by getting to know their water. Now, therefore, the governing body of the City of Ottawa, Kansas, does hereby proclaim the week of April 15 through 21, 2018 to be Water Week in Ottawa, Kansas, and urges all residents to protect and preserve our access to safe water. Signed this 18th day of April 2018 by Michael B. Skidmore, Mayor.
Wonderful. David, you want to say a few words first? Sure. Go right ahead.
First of all, I want to thank you for recognizing Water Week. It is a national event every April. It's called to call the attention to the value of water and its role in our everyday life. And I'd first of all like to thank you, Mayor and Commissioners, for your work as a governing body in valuing water. You've proved in the past that you value our water, be it water treatment, distribution, collection, stormwater, or water reclamation. You have valued that, and you've shown it by your actions in supporting us financially and in projects, and I appreciate that. We do thank you for the proclamation. There's a crew of approximately 25 within the city organization, professionals that dedicate themselves on a daily basis, be it treatment or distribution, collection, stormwater, or water reclamation. So on a daily basis, we've got a good contingent of professionals superintending that, and we appreciate it.
Okay.
We've got a few of them with us today. This Scott Stevens, water treatment superintendent, Scott Stevens, and Steve Piper is our newest maintenance man at the water treatment plant. We'd hope to have more, but they're out doing business.
That's great. No, that's what they should be doing. I'll come down there and get all of us in this one, don't we? just as more, just as much important as this guy is, right? So I think let's do it that way. Maybe we should shake your hand. Here, Dennis.
Mayor, may I say a
Yes, go
word
ahead.
about
Go ahead, Tom.
water? I'm a Rotarian, and there are several people in this room that are Rotarians, and water is one of our major, the most important resource, actually, the world over, and in Ottawa as well. But to have a good, clean drink of water is a valuable thing to do, and probably the majority of the world have to walk and carry water from a well in a bucket back to their homes and families. And we just are blessed in this country to have access to good, clean, pure drinking water every day. And we should be mindful of that and protective of that. And we value that very highly. Thank
I
you.
agree. Thank you, Tom. Well said. If anybody's traveled to foreign countries where you have to brush your teeth with bottled water, you know how much you appreciate and take for granted our clean water here, and how you start to take a drink and you realize you can't do that for a few days and you can end up being sick. But nonetheless, we do appreciate you guys. So thank you very much. Pass it on to the rest of your department if you could. Thanks for being here. We'll move on to item, we're at number 13.
Public hearing to consider the adoption of a Rural Housing Incentive District, RHID, and designation of Rural Housing Incentive District.
Let's see, the RHID is for the Prairie Fire Housing Project at Enterprise and Cherry Streets. And the public hearing, we will go ahead and open it now. And Wendy.
Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners.
Morning.
Do have a little PowerPoint since this is our first RHID in the city of Ottawa. About a year and a half ago, Adrian with our consultant, Kutak Rock, came and made a presentation to the city, county, and school district about rural housing incentive districts. And this had come up with a couple of different developers had approached us about were we interested. So we had that meeting early on. But the project that has asked to be considered is the Prairie Fire project. We do for you're in the community at large. Want to let you know that this is a common program. The statutes provide for this incentive. It's for rural areas of Kansas. The city can use our HIDs for the site improvements and the infrastructure. So sewer, electricity, gas, water, sidewalks. Now, we don't provide gas, so at this point, our project doesn't include that. But those are the kinds of amenities, infrastructure, really. It's very similar to a tax increment financing district, so some folks know that we've done several of those projects. This allows then for construction of new residents if you were a city housing authority. That's not this proposal. That would be another alternative. Again, the statute, just like with tax increment financing, does allow for special obligation bonds, although that would just be for, again, the infrastructure. This project is not utilizing that, but the statute does allow for it. The revenue that's created through the formation of a district is the incremental property tax minus the 20 mills for schools and 1.5 mills for state. That is the primary utilization that we have here in Ottawa. You can use some sales or use tax revenues if those are generated, but again, that's just what the statute allows. The city can acquire property also, and we just think this, in our community, there's been a lot of demand for housing. So this is just another tool for us to use and use judiciously, so we would certainly be conservative again in our approach, which we have been. At the beginning, you have to form a district, but before you can even do that, we have to do a housing needs analysis, which we shared with you several months ago, and that has been completed. Then you have to publish that, which has also been completed. The city then sends the resolution to the Secretary of Commerce, and then they notify us if they believe that we have met the statute test for the considerations of housing need. And we have received that letter. Then we publish a letter to consider a development plan and the designation of the district, which we did. That also says the date of the hearing, which is today. And so today we're holding a hearing, and then post the hearing, later in the agenda, we hope that you're prepared or willing to adopt a development plan and designate this district as proposed. The Board of Education and the County Commissioners still have the opportunity to veto, just like they do with the tax increment financing district. But they had indicated to us earlier that they were supportive of this project, and so we don't expect that, but it is a possibility. The project itself is located at Cherry and Enterprise, which is northwest of the Lincoln School. That parcel has been designated for higher density housing for many years. The consultants we've worked with us on this are Tyler and Adrian, both from Kutak Rock, as well as Bruce from Ellers, who does the feasibility, and we use those same consultants for our TIF work. The developer in this case is Prairie Fire, and they would install the infrastructure and then the housing as well. And then this is a pay-as-you-go methodology, which is the city's preferred method, so that the developer gets back the increment created, but the risk is on them. They would be installing that infrastructure. The city would then accept it and have more infrastructure in our community. The development agreement and the policy that we're anticipating we will use with this would allow for 97.5% of that increment to be provided back to them for 15 years. That's the max of the district allowance. That the request is really, as you've heard, because we've had several presentations with them, they've applied for a moderate income housing grant with us, and we did receive that. They are in consideration now of a low-income tax credit project, and they have not received word of that yet. But the target is to create a mixed-income, affordable housing area. So some of those properties would be limited based on income, and some of the others would be at market rent. As a part of the development plan, I have to consider what's the current value of the property, and then what would the value of it be after the housing units are installed. So this first table just shows you what that is today. The developer provided their anticipated expenses, which they believe will be about $750,000 for the first phase, if I recall. And then for the second phase, there would be additional. The RHID, when we first ran the feasibility, was going to generate the amount of funds needed within about 10 to 11 years. However, the developers use a different methodology and will be working with the county appraiser on their value. And as such, that reduced the amount of income that we're projecting at this point. And so that's why we've allowed for, if this all moves forward, allowed for a 15-year time period. The developer won't get all of the funds back that they would be expending for the infrastructure, but it does, in this projection, return about $316,000 out of that $750 eligible. And so you have the feasibility and development plan and the maps and those kinds of things. We also have the development agreement as following in the next action. So again, it's 15-year max. They pay up front, and then they can collect. We would return to them increment as it's generated. It's at their risk. If they, for example, didn't build the units at the time frame that we're currently anticipating, it would reduce their income in that time period. The development agreement also calls for them to begin construction by December of this year and to complete by December of 2020. The other thing that we agreed to in this development agreement is to allow them to simultaneously construct units and infrastructure, so they can begin their pads or do their grading all as at one time. But the eligible expenses are just for the infrastructure, land acquisition, et cetera. They're not for the construction of the building units themselves. Today, Tyler is here, as Tyler Ellsworth, as well as Adrian, and then also the developer's representative is here if you want to ask questions more about the project. But this is kind of the final step towards getting this project on board up there. And I'm not sure I said, but the first phase would be 36 units with an ability to add another 18, I think, is the possibility with that second phase. The developers hope actually after this to continue to build in the community, and we look forward to a good relationship. I did do, and I think I mentioned this to you earlier, I did contact some of the communities where they had already worked, and I had great feedback about their willingness to do what they need to do and their timeliness and their good communication, and so we expect this would be a great project.
Very good. Thank you, Wendy. Tyler, Adrian, you have anything to add, or you're good there? All right, thanks. Any other comments?
I do have a request for the developer. What price point do you foresee these units for renting for?
In the rent range, it's kind of interesting. We on our rent restricted, we're basically we have to cap the rents at AMI level. I'm not going to get into the technical, but we basically have rents from about $250 a month all the way up to, on our market units, I believe around $895 or $925 a month. So we have the good thing about this project, by having the MIH grant in it, the RHID, it helps us to really have a large dichotomy of rents. So there's folks working with ECAN in the community that may, be very low income that needs a 3-bedroom unit, but we also have 3-bedroom units that we can rent to market rate folks. So it's really truly going to be a mixed income project that's going to be open to pretty much everybody in the community. So
Great. Thank you.
You bet. Any other questions on that?
any more questions?
I appreciate you pointing that out, because our community is very diverse like that, and so this will be something for everyone. So thank you for that comment there. And if I understand, this is like a TIF. I think you said, Wendy, residential TIF. I mean, we're not giving up any tax dollars now. We're just deferring some future income, and that's going to be there after the 15-year time period. So I think it's a wonderful way to look at it, and great project, and just call it deferred income, I guess, right? Any other comments? Anyone else want to speak at the public hearing? If not, we'll close the public hearing, and we'll go on to item number 14.
Request for approval of ordinance adopting a rural housing incentive district development plan, establishing a rural housing incentive district, and entering into a development agreement.
This ordinance is for the Prairie Fire Housing Project Enterprise and Cherry Streets. Anybody else want to?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Commissioner.
I move to approve the requests of the ordinance described in item 14 of the agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second on that, Tom. Thank you. Any other discussion on this? If not, we'll go to a roll call vote, please.
How do you vote, Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Wygand?
Yes.
Commissioner Graves?
Yes.
Mayor Skidmore?
I vote yes, too. Motion carries. So thank you all for your work, and especially for your investment in Ottawa. So it's very much appreciated. It's been a long time since we've had a development here in town, and I like particularly where locations, so it's fantastic. Everybody wins. So thank you all for your work on this. We'll move on to item number 15.
Public hearing to consider a Community Improvement District, CID, at 21st and Princeton.
This CID is for a former Price Chopper DIY area, including Shoe Sensations and the Dollar Store. So we'll open the public hearing. And who's up? Tyler.
Good morning, Mayor and
Morning.
Commissioners. Tyler Ellsworth with the law firm of Kutak Rock, the city's special counsel for this CID project. We've visited about this CID project in the past. This is a request from a developer that owns the current DIY store and inline retail center. And it's a request to use a CID add-on 1% sales tax to make improvements to that retail center and potentially move the DIY store to the former Price Chopper space to the north and open up the current DIY space to an additional tenant down the road. They are making improvements to the parking lot there. The parking lot does need some work. And the request to the commission this morning is really just to open this hearing and hopefully to continue it until the May 2nd commission meeting. There are still some moving parts here. The developer's original petition for this CID included the 2 parcels that the developer owns, but also included 2 parcels, one of which is McDonald's and the other is the Nagoya restaurant that the developer did not own. And discussions are ongoing as it relates to the inclusion or exclusion of those two parcels and how that impacts the numbers here and the development agreement. So staff would request that the commission continue this hearing as those discussions continue and resume the hearing at the May 2nd commission meeting.
And just a quick question, does that not include the Thriftopia store, or is that just wasn't mentioned in here? It does, okay. I didn't know if they charge sales tax. I guess they do in there.
It would be, yeah, it would be.
Yeah, everybody, okay. All right, very good. All right. Any other comments from anybody else? If we're okay, we'll just continue this public hearing until the next one we meet. I get that's, what was that date again?
May 2nd.
May 2nd, okay.
Very good.
Let's do that. We'll do that. All right?
All right. Thank you.
Thanks. We need a motion on that, or is that just a continuation?
Probably a motion.
Wouldn't be hurt. Let's go ahead and someone make that motion to continue this.
Mr. Mayor.
All three of you. I know, we get everybody here. Go ahead, Commissioner.
I move that we continue the public hearing to May 2nd.
Is there a second? Is there a second on that?
Second.
There we go. All right. We just do a voice call. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We'll continue that hearing. Thank you, Tyler, for your work on that. Appreciate you talking, Rock. Thank you for all your involvement and investment in Ottawa, too. So you guys do a great job for us. I just want to pass that on. Let's move on to item number 15. Or I guess we'll pass on that, right? 16.
16, yeah, okay. Request for approval of conditional use permit at 307 North Main.
Now, this permit would allow outdoor storage and warehousing of sheds located at 307 North Main Street in a C3 General Commercial District. And Wendy.
Good morning.
Morning.
Probably going to sink into the ground up here over the next few items. Okay, so the conditional use permit came about because of a change. This owner had done the same business at another location, but at that location it was an accessory use. When he moved locations, there was no other primary use on the parcels. So in order to use that location, he needed to go through this conditional use process. At the time we held a hearing, there was some discussion back and forth. There was the Planning Commission had some concerns about access and communication with the two property owners that were affected by access and parking, and so they and staff recommended denial. That recommendation went to at a study session, and the owner, in the meantime of the business, made arrangements with the two other owners that were involved for them to agree for his access and parking as needed when people would come to look at these units or relocate them. And so we suggested to you remand that to the Planning Commission. They took that under further consideration and then agreed that that changed the majority of their concerns. And so they recommend to you approval of this conditional use by a vote of 4-0, and staff is fine with this as well.
Okay. Anybody have any questions of Wendy? I just have a brief one. I understand it would be up to 3 sheds maximum at this location if they did this, or 3 or 4. I couldn't remember the number.
I think it's 4. Typically, he has 4 different sizes. The only actual condition on this, and I probably should have said it, is that it come up for review by staff a year from now to be sure that it is still.
Okay.
And just for the public's benefit, if a problem were to develop in the meantime, it's not to say that we couldn't address it in that time period, but that's so that we just check it again in a year and be sure everything is functioning as described in their application.
That's good. Good point. Okay. Any other questions?
These are not required to be secured to the ground, and they can stand winds like we had the other day. 50, 60 miles.
We've not known them at their previous location to have any movement. However, one of the things that nearby is no structures immediately, but there's a drainage ditch, and so if they were to go, for example, to the east, they would go that way. If they were to go to the west, they would have to move a bit because it keeps them not right up close to the street, but a little bit further back. But if we were to see anything like that, we would certainly address it. But no, they're not anchored.
Okay. Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion on this item.
I so moved that we approve that.
Okay. We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, second. Any other discussion on this? If not, let's have a roll call vote, please.
How do you vote, Commissioner Graves?
Yes.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Wygand?
Yes.
Mayor Skidmore?
I vote yes, too. Motion carries. So thank you, Wendy. And up to number 17. We're moving right along, aren't we? We got something to go to here. Let's get going.
We will. I am right with you, Mayor.
All right.
It's been since 2006 that we reviewed and updated our weed ordinance, and at the time of the municipal code update, our city attorney recommended we take a look at this ordinance, and so we did. In addition, the city clerk had some input, as well as our stormwater GIS technician, because there are a couple of different things happening. One, we were trying to get not in conflict with state statutes. We want to be in conformance with them. In addition to that, we wanted to adjust some definitions. And then probably the one that we'll continue to hear more about is in order to do, and it's appropriate that we talk about it today with being the Water Week, in order to continue our efforts to provide good water standards for our community, one of the things that we allow with this change in the ordinance would be that in certain locations, upon approval of their plan, an owner or an area where we have low areas where water goes, we can allow the growth there to be more than 12 inches. So, for example, I know that when people have traveled to Lawrence or what have you, they may see areas where someone has installed native grasses or other things, and that's a clean water effort. It will also reduce then the possibility exists that it would reduce some maintenance. Now, it does come with cost. You can't just make grass is not necessarily native. So it is specific plantings and a specific plan, but we do have a mechanism now that would not be forced to be cut down because it exceeds 12 inches in height. Had someone come to us before with that kind of a situation, we probably would have made an exception, but certainly having it in the code makes it clear to all that we're interested in those kinds of projects.
Very good. Anybody have any questions? I'll entertain a motion.
I do. We're no longer going to require if they're in the waterways and those kind of things, but is there a certain height and can they grow up and die there, or?
Actually, we will still require it to be mowed until they have an approved plan. So it's not just a matter of, well, I'm just going to quit mowing. So we have in the language specifically excludes native vegetation that's been approved by the city manager or his/her designee in a sensitive area designation plan or a stream buffer plan or a stormwater best management practice. Those are all definitions of specific kinds of plants that we would need with specific plantings called out, and the maintenance, because there is sometimes some species required to be burned once a year or to be cut once a year, or there are, depending on the plan, there would be things that they would
Thinking of the drainage ditches in the Northeast Industrial Park, those have been maintained and mowed, and now that's not necessary. Is that true?
Well, our stormwater person is actually looking at some of those drainage areas to talk about what we need to do to them and what plantings could be there. And I know the city manager is good, has expressed concern about some of the drainage areas in the community.
I've thought for a long time that the burden we impose upon citizens to mow those waterways, in most cases, they don't have the equipment to do it safely and they can't do it. But this gives us an opportunity to be a partner with our citizens. I've kind of thought about this. There's some great research out there about plants you can plant that don't need mowing, and they provide ground cover, and they help us protect from erosion. So I'm going to make sure we do some more staff on that. We can get some help from Conservation District. There's a number of sources we can go to, and this could be a program where we actually help subsidize what the property owner's doing on those waterways so that it saves them from trying to mow it. It gives us a buffer zone of water going into those waterways being filtered, and it could be a win-win situation for everyone.
Okay.
Thank you, Richard. Clarification? Any other questions? If not, I entertain a motion on item number 17.
Mr. Mayor,
Commissioner,
I move that we approve item 17 in our agenda.
second?
I'll second it.
Is that a second out there? Second? Second, Tom, is that right? Okay, any other discussion on this? I think when, too, this ordinance talks about the milkweed, is that right? And it's included in there as being accepted,
I'm sorry.
the milkweed we've been
Yes.
talking about.
Yes,
We want to
which
promote
is-
monarch butterflies. I understand that's the favorite meal of butterflies, so
That's right.
milkweed, so we're glad to be inviting for butterflies as well in our community, so. Any other questions? We have a motion and a second. No other discussion? Let's take roll call vote, please.
How do you vote, Commissioner Graves?
Yes.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Whitehead?
Yes.
Mayor Skidmore?
And I vote yes, too. The motion carries. Thanks, Wendy. I guess we'll go on to the next item then.
Request for approval of grant application to Kansas Wildlife and Parks.
The city, in partnership with Onward Ottawa, would like the approval to apply for grant funds for an attraction grant from the Department of Wildlife, Parks and Tourism. This would be for the project at First and Walnut. And Wendy again.
Mayor, we do also have representatives from the Onward Ottawa project, the chamber director, John Cohen, as well as Doug and Matt with Opportunity Funding, who are working diligently to put both the grant together as well as raise the other funds necessary for the project. This project, this project is an attraction grant and would be used to really help the Onward Ottawa project, which would punch up our efforts to make that a rural destination, particularly with the two trails there. So these are coming in concert. The goal of the state with attraction grants, as well as what Ottawa is doing, as well as what the city is committed to doing to help that project and that area, and our visitors have a great experience when they come to Ottawa and come through our downtown. I can answer more questions, but the goal here is to ask for funding upwards of $75,000 to $100,000 of funding that would go against expenses around about $250,000, and it may come in phases, but the folks that have met with the state, including the mayor, had a great discussion with them, and we really do feel like this is a favorable opportunity to provide match dollars into this project. And they're here if you want to ask any more questions about the project as a whole. But
Anybody have any questions? I will say I appreciate Doug and John going with us and meeting David Lee there too, and I agree that they seem to be very excited about this project we've got here. It's the first they had heard of it, and yeah, it was a very positive meeting, I felt like, so I very appreciate the effort. We're making progress. We're getting close, and it's great to have that feeling going forward. So no other discussion. We'll entertain a motion on item number 18.
Mr. Mayor,
Commissioner.
I move to approve the request for the approval of the grant application as described in item 18 of the agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a second. Any other discussion? Let's have a roll call vote, please.
How do you vote, Commissioner Graves?
Yes.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Weigand?
Yes.
Mayor Skidmore?
I vote yes, too. Motion carries. Thank you, Wendy. And item number 19 now.
Approval of notice of auction of building lots.
And we have 8 building lots in Lakeside Edition will be sold to the city, by the city, at an auction on Thursday, May 10th, 2018, at 11 a.m. in the City Commission chambers at City Hall. Starting bid will be at $16,000 per lot. Other conditions may be found on the city's website. And Wendy, go ahead.
originally, the city had acquired this parcel anticipating that the bulk of it would be a park. However, there's an existing residential unit there, and so as we've continued to look at it, and you have been involved in those discussions, the city had directed that we would have 6 building lots. But this week, there was further discussion about adding a few more. So the lots that would be available for sale, just to be clear, are right near that first little cul-de-sac and 2 lots north of the house. So that's lots 1, 2, 3. 16, 17, 19, 20, and 21. The area will still have some park amenities. We have a lake there, and we expect some of the area, particularly to the north of it, to be developed that way. There is some drainage area as well in this area, so again, maybe an opportunity to do some clean water amenities. The conditions are listed, and we can have them available on our website, but just for the sake of the public, there is covenants with this land. They need to be sure, folks that would buy need to be sure they understand those. It would be for residential construction. Bidders need to understand the city has the option to reject any or all bids. The city will not finance any of these acquisition offers. The contract would need to be executed within 14 days and close in 30. Minimum dwelling size per the covenants is 850 square feet, and if more than one story, not less than 1,400 square feet. We have an example of our contract available if people are interested in that, and that will also be on our website. There will need to be a letter of guarantee by the required bidder. Highest bidder will be given the option to acquire all lots at bid price per lot. There are impact fees on each of these lots individually at $1,525. Those impact fees with your approval can be waived if construction has begun on any lot would be eligible to have that waived if construction has begun within 12 months. However, if somebody's buying multiple lots, the waiver is for one impact fee waiver, and if they're spreading out units, then there would still be some impact fee collection expected. Again, as you said, Mayor, the date for the auction is May 10th, 2018 at 11 a.m. here at City Hall. And we have an image of those lots available as well if people are interested.
Great. Anybody have any questions?
Wendy, could you kind of recap how the city acquired these lots and just in round figures? And I don't want to put you on the spot, but
yeah, I didn't bring down round figures, but the developer
is a failed housing development.
Yes, it was originally intended to be single-family housing development for all of the tracts, but that developer ended up transferring the land to another developer, and some of those lots also were transferred to a third party. That third party then transferred 2 lots, which are not mentioned in what we have, to OU. So those 2 lots, along with the single-family structure that's there now, are not a part of what the city owns. The city owns all the balance, and we acquired that because the second developer determined that the market was not going to be suitable for housing. This was in about 2009, maybe 10. I really don't remember.
I recall 9. But
yeah, and so the city has owned them and been maintaining. But it was all along there was some interest in selling some of those lots in order to fund the anticipated park improvements that would be there. Part of the attraction was, one, that pond is really necessary for the overall drainage area over there. And originally there had even been a thought that they might not have the pond. It just simply is absolutely critical. And so we would hold that and have fish and have an opportunity that we don't currently have inside the city.
And it's kind of my recollection that the cost of the lots was approximately $90,000,
Yes.
of which we received $30,000 back for our share of the taxes, and so roughly round figures $60,000. So if all 8 of these lots sell, that'll generate $128,000, which will offset the purchase price. Plus, we get the rest of the land for the park, and then at this point, the $128,000 can be used for improvements to to develop the park.
That's right. And until this year, the city has been paying taxes on all of them.
Okay.
So.
Okay, very good. And who is our auctioneer? Is that?
It's our very own city attorney.
Oh, okay,
Blaine.
that's right. Oh, great. So you got to tell jokes between the lots when you sell them? Okay. Mr. Auctioneer, okay.
7-8% commission.
Oh, wow.
Well,
Yeah, good off there, yeah.
that might have changed that altogether. So.
Wow.
That just went over the budget.
Wow, we just redefined the Great Commission there, didn't we? Wow, that's scary. Okay. All right, we're glad to get this going. I'm looking forward to getting this thing going, so I'm excited about that too. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Commissioner.
I move to approve the notice of auction of the building lots as Ms. Lee described.
Okay, needs a second on this?
I'll second that.
Second by Tom. Any other discussion? Let's have a roll call vote, please.
How do you vote, Commissioner Wyand?
Yes.
Commissioner Graves?
Yes.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Mayor Skidmore?
And I vote yes, too. The motion carries. And we'll leave the gavel up here for you, Blaine, so it's all ready for you.
We do need a volunteer to start off the auction right to sing the auctioneer song.
Oh, my. We'll pass on that. We want to sell these lots. We don't. Run off the crowd. Wendy, have a safe trip. Thank you for what your work doing on that, too. Thank you. We'll move on to item number 20.
Request for approval to authorize the city manager to execute a mitigation credit agreement between the City of Ottawa, Kansas and Swallowtail LLC for Proximity Park land.
This mitigation agreement will fulfill the federal requirements for addressing wetlands mitigation on land to be developed as proximity park for business and industrial purposes.
So, good morning, Commissioners. I'll give you a short version because we had a long discussion about this Monday, but this is one of the few remaining major actions we need to take as we march down the road to getting the land ready for development in Proximity Park, and this applies to those 330 acres. One of the federal requirements we had to do was actually do a complete environmental review for wetlands and for historical artifacts. There were no historical artifacts. That's already been cleared with the state, with the federal government. That's what Mr. Flick was instrumental in helping both the city and the county on. And we had some wetlands, and with Mr. Flick's help, we were able to actually cut this down so that there was a smaller amount of wetlands that we had to deal with. Now, on wetland mitigation, as Mr. Flick said Monday, we had three options. We could sell our rights and what they call in lieu of, and at the end of 10 years, if there had been no catastrophe that happened that made us go back to ground zero, we would be done. We could maintain the wetlands ourselves, and I would tell you that's an expensive proposition. We don't have the expertise to do that, and that would probably, that I know, that would cost more in the long run than it would take to settle on the third option, which was paying for credits into a wetlands bank. And I would tell you that both County Administrator Derek Brown, City Attorney Blaine Finch, and I, and our engineers spent a lot. We've probably spent about a year and a half on this aspect of it because it was something that I didn't know about, no one else around the table knew about, and we asked a lot of questions, and we even went out and explored, was there someone else we could buy credits from that could do the same thing that Mr. Flick's company could do. And we came to the conclusion, everybody came back and said, this is the best approach for you to take. That came from both of our engineering firms, came from our legal counsel, came from others we had spoke with. So it's just an entirely, I think it's a new normal when we go out and we buy other land and we'll expand that business park. We'll have to deal with this again. It's just part of where we're at in society. And the project close to you that you can relate to is 59 between here and Lawrence. They had to deal, and the bypass, they had to deal with wetland credits, and they had to deal with that kind of thing. So what we're bringing to you is a recommendation to ask for authorization to allow me to sign a contract with Mr. Flick. And as I said, with full disclosure, this is his company, Swallowtail. And what we do is we pay $203,450, and the county is a partner in that with us, and I reconfirmed that yesterday with the county administrator. They pay 33%, and we pay 67%. And once we have that money transferred, once we have that signed in with Mr. Flick, then we have met our federal obligation. Now, the wetlands is divided down in the two credits, stream credits. As you heard Rock Creek going through there, we have to pay 1,050 feet of stream credits. I wish we had more of those because those are only $45 a credit. But we have 2.84 acres of wetland credits at $55,000 an acre. So I'd like to have lots of stream. It would have been less expensive in the end. And the question was asked Monday about how we're going to pay for this. So I reconfirmed, Mr. Byrd and I reconfirmed with the city attorney that we could take this out of our stormwater fees. In fact, in the ordinance, in the stormwater fees, we did make an allowance for wetland credits and buying those types of credits out of there. So I would stand for any questions that I can answer.
Anybody have any questions?
Would you explain the first option a little better? I didn't understand. You could sell the rights, and in 10 years, if nothing happened, how does that work?
Well, it's as I remember, Mr. Flicktalk called it an in lieu of wetland purchase credit. And he gave an example of another community that was in, I believe, the Mississippi floodway. And what they did was they paid a fee for 10 years. I believe they did some maintenance on the wetlands during that period, but at the end of 10 years, if nothing happened, they would be in the clear. Well, it just so happened, in that last year, they had a major flood, and what EPA said, and I think Mr. Flick said it best, was that although it was an act of God, they're not God and they're not forgiving. And so that community had to go back and start at year one.
I recall
just,
that now.
in
So
essence,
yeah,
doubled the-
covered with sand, I think, or something.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you. Any other questions on this? I guess it's the most economical way to look at it. It's just basically a cost of doing business, the way I look at it. Is that about the best to describe it?
Well, you're exactly right.
Just, we got to do it. And we're covering only 2/3 of that in the county. We appreciate their partnership in covering a third. Okay. Any other questions on this? I'll entertain a motion on this item.
Much as I regret
I thought the same thing.
this having to be done, but it has something to do with water, I would move we approve the payment of those funds for the credits.
Is there a second on this?
I'll second.
There is a second. Any other discussion on this? If not, we'll have roll call vote, please.
How do you vote, Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Wygant?
Yes.
Commissioner Graves?
Yes.
Mayor Kaler? I'm sorry.
That's close
Mayor
enough,
Skidmore.
and I'll vote yes, too. That motion carries. Thank you.
Thank
Well,
you, Commissioners.
Yeah, we'll go on next to report by city manager.
I have nothing.
Nothing? Okay. How about report from the commissioners? We'll start with Emily.
No report.
Nothing there. Blake?
No report.
Tom?
None?
None there? Okay. We're moving right along. I don't have a report either. We'll go on to our joint city meeting at the USD district offices today at noon. Then we also have the week conference at Ottawa University. That will be tomorrow at 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. if my times are right. 2 p.m. at the Union and at 7 p.m. at the Frederickson Chapel. And then our study session on the 23rd has been canceled in lieu of the active shooter training at 3:30. That'll take us to about 7:30 or 8. And if there's nothing else before the commission, we have, okay, just Blaine.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, I would request a 15-minute executive session with the commission and the city manager for the purpose of consulting with the city attorney for confidential communications with the board regarding some ongoing legal matters.
Okay, we have a motion on that.
Mr. Mayor,
Commissioner.
I move that we go into executive session with the city manager and the city attorney for a period of 15 minutes for attorney-client privilege.
I'll second that.
A second on that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We will do that, then there will be no action taken, and 15 minutes, we'll do that.
Back here at 20 till.
20 till, let's do that. All right. We are adjourned.